Jim?
Thanks very much, PM and Katie. I really just want to pay tribute to these two, the PM for his leadership and Katie for really the most extraordinary effort last night. We are grateful every day for the opportunity to work with Katie Gallagher, but especially last night. For those of us who don't speak fluent Senate, it is such a wonderful opportunity for us to work closely with Katie to deliver the government's agenda, particularly when it comes to our economic policy agenda. So I take responsibility for 11 Treasury bills that passed last night, but I take absolutely none of the credit for their passage. The credit for that belongs to Katie and to the Prime Minister as well. This is a very big week for economic reform right across the board. Tax reform, housing, super objective, future made in Australia, consumer protections in buy now, pay later, competition policy, getting a better deal for people at the checkout and the Reserve Bank reforms as well. This is what progress and delivery looks like. We've been able to focus primarily on the cost of living and the fight against inflation at the same time as we keep the wheels of economic reform turning. Our strategy has three parts: relief, repair and reform. And last night we took huge steps when it comes to economic reform in our economy. Later today I'll also be hosting the State and Territory Treasurers to advance our very substantial agenda of economic reform. We will be progressing the Productivity Fund with the states, which is all about productivity reform, but also housing and competition policy as well. So a huge week for economic reform. We've done a lot. We know that there is still a lot to do. But what we saw in the Senate last night was really the triumph of outcomes over politics. The triumph of outcomes and delivery and progress over the kind of petty, nasty, negative politics being played by our opponents. The coalition has completely vacated the field on the economy, completely vacated the field on the cost of living and on economic reform. You know, we are at the end of the last full parliamentary year before an election, and they still don't have any costed, credible or coherent economic policies. And I raise that to make the contrast with the really quite amazing progress that Katie and the colleagues were able to make in the Senate under the Prime Minister's leadership. I thank them again for the progress that's been made. I also acknowledge the work of all of our senators and the crossbench as well. The best kind of economic reform is bipartisan, but when the coalition has vacated the field, we have no choice but to make progress with the crossbench. I acknowledge them and I acknowledge these two in particular.